eggs against the endless fury of the open sky.
Storms and disaster.
Cold winds
Never
whipped
leaving
across
the
the
eggs
narrow
and
nest,
guarded
while
above the
Shiro
crashing
wrapped
waves
warm
far
feathers
below.
tightly around the precious
one
eggs
quiet
hidden
morning,
beneath the
Tiny
powerful
Fred
wings,
finally
protected
discovered
two
how
fragile
to
white
save
eggs
the
against the
eggs.
endless fury of the open sky.
Into the dangerous world above
Cold
the
winds whipped across the narrow nest, while Shiro wrapped warm feathers tightly around the precious eggs hidden beneath the powerful wings, protected two fragile white eggs against the endless fury of the open sky. Cold winds whipped across the narrow nest, while Shiro wrapped warm feathers tightly around the precious eggs hidden beneath the powerful wings, protected two fragile white eggs against the endless fury of the open sky. Cold winds whipped across the narrow nest, while Shiro wrapped warm feathers tightly around the precious eggs hidden beneath the powerful wings, protected two fragile white eggs against the endless fury of the open sky. Cold winds whipped across the narrow nest, while Shiro wrapped warm feathers tightly around the precious eggs hidden beneath the powerful wings, protected two fragile white eggs against the endless fury of the open sky.
As the days passed, the hungry chicks searched constantly while Shiro raced tirelessly into the open sky, catching insects with breathtaking aerial precision. Dragonflies, beetles, fleas, and gnats disappeared instantly into Shiro's sharp teeth before being carefully divided among the other newborns waiting inside the nest. Strong windstorms swept across the forest, but Shiro spread wide wings like a living shield to keep the tiny chicks warm and dry beneath the freezing light. Every broken eggshell was removed carefully from the nest, while every small feather growing upon the chicks received gentle grooming and protection. Then another predator emerged against in synchronized formations through endless skies, performing flawless barrel rolls and impossible aerial maneuvers above the vast ocean below. The young birds now hunted expertly beside Shiro, diving fearlessly into enormous clouds of insects while sharing meals together in midair. One final threat emerged when another came flying toward the old cliff mountain. But this time the drone offspring joined Shiro in a coordinated aerial assault. Shiro demonstrated perfect takeoff technique with his elegant flight circle while enclosing the near the ship, preparing for their first leap into the open sky. Then came the moment that would change everything when one brave ship finally stepped toward the edge and jumped into the endless air below. The terrified young bird flapped wildly through the strong ocean winds while Shiro flew perfectly beside it, offering guidance and protection. Slowly the fighting ship stabilized its wings and completed the first successful flight above the crashing waves to meet the proud watch of Shiro. fearless against storms and exhaustion, never leaving the edge unguarded above the crashing waves far below. Then one quiet moment, tiny cracks finally spread across the smooth white shells as new life struggled to emerge into the dangerous world above the sea. Fragile newborn chicks lifted trembling heads for the first time while Shiro watched closely with protective eyes filled with fierce devotion. The danger arrived immediately when a deadly cobra slithered silently toward a vulnerable nest hidden along the cliffside rocks. The venomous snake raised its hood menacingly beside the helpless chicks. Yet Shiro launched into battle without hesitation. With lightning speed, Shiro attacked the cobra's eyes repeatedly and seized the twisting predator in a violent midair struggle above the cliff edge. The snake writhed desperately as Shiro dragged it away from the nest and hurled it into the roaring abyss below the crashing ocean waves. Victorious once again, Shiro returned immediately to comfort the frightened chicks and shield them safely beneath warm protective feathers. As the days passed, the hungry chicks searched constantly while Shiro raced tirelessly through the open sky catching insects with breathtaking aerial precision. Dragonflies, beetles, bees, and gnats disappeared instantly into Shiro's sharp teeth before being carefully divided among the eager newborns waiting inside the nest. Strong windstorms swept across the cliffs, but Shiro spread wide wings like a living shield to keep the tiny chicks warm and dry beneath the freezing water. Every broken eggshell was removed carefully from the nest, while every small feather growing upon the chicks received gentle grooming and protection. Then another predator emerged when a giant hawk suddenly dove toward the nest, hoping to seize one of the vulnerable young birds. huddled closely against Hero while lightning exploded dramatically across the stormy sky outside the cave entrance. Even though danger followed them when they caved back a few too close to the darkness, provoking Hero into another fierce chase through an echoing shadow. sky, forcing Shiro to guide the exhausted flock into a shallow cave sitting beside the cliff overlooking the sea. Inside the shelter, the growing birds huddled closely against Shiro while lightning exploded dramatically across the stormy sky outside the cave entrance. Even the danger followed them when the cave back flew too close to safely beneath warm protected feathers. As the days passed, the hungry chicks chirped constantly while Shiro raced tirelessly through the open sky catching insects with breathtaking aerial precision. Dragonflies, beetles, bees, and gnats disappeared instantly into Shiro's sharp feet before being carefully divided among the eager newborns waiting inside the nest. Strong windstorms swept across the cliff, but Shiro spread wide wings like a living shield to keep the tiny chicks warm and dry beneath the freezing wind. Every broken eggshell was removed carefully from the nest, while every small feather growing upon the chick received gentle grooming and protection. Then another predator emerged when a giant hawk suddenly dove toward the nest, hoping to seize one of the vulnerable young birds. Shiro reacted instantly, twisting gracefully through the open air before chasing the much larger predator across the sky at incredible speed. Again and again, Shiro struck the hawk from behind until the defeated hunters finally escaped far away from the danger of the cliff airfield. The growing chicks watched every aerial battle closely while slowly developing stronger feathers and larger wings beneath the care of their fearless parents. Soon tiny wings began flapping awkwardly inside the nest as the young birds copied every graceful movement demonstrated proudly by Shiro. But the dangers of the cliffside never ended, and the giant lizard soon crept silently toward the nest searching for helpless prey. Shiro spotted the intruder immediately and launched downward with explosive force, biting fiercely onto the lizard's tail before dragging it toward the cliff edge. The struggling predator tumbled helplessly into the crashing ocean below, while Shiro returned triumphantly carrying fresh food to the waiting chicks. As sunset painted the cliffs orange and gold, the chicks huddled closely beneath Shiro's wings while distant predators prowled through the darkness nearby. One terrifying night, a huge owl approached silently through the shadows, hoping to ambush the sleeping nest beneath the moonlight. Shiro exploded into the darkness screeching furiously and repeatedly pecked the owl's face until the injured predator vanished back into the night. Morning returned with warm sunlight and growing confidence as the young birds practiced stronger wing beats beside the edge of the towering cliff. Demonstrated perfect takeoff technique through elegant flight circles while encouraging the nervous chicks preparing for their first leap into the open sky. Then came the moment that would change everything when one brave chick finally stepped toward the edge and jumped into the endless air below. The terrified young bird flapped wildly through the strong ocean winds while Shiro flew perfectly beside it, offering guidance and protection. Slowly the frightened chick stabilized its wings and completed the first successful flight above the crashing waves beneath the proud watch of Shiro. his hero into another fierce chase through an echoing shadow. painted the cliff orange and gold. The chick huddled closely beneath Shiro's wings while different predators prowled through the darkness nearby. One terrifying night, a huge owl approached silently through the shadows, hoping to ambush the sleeping nest beneath the moonlight. Shiro exploded into the darkness, screeching furiously, and repeatedly touched the owl's face until the injured predator vanished out into the night. Morning returned with warm sunlight and growing confidence as the young birds practiced stronger wing beats beside the edge of the towering cliff. Shiro demonstrated perfect takeoff technique with the elegant flight circle while encouraging the nervous chicks preparing for their first leap into the open sky. Then came the moment that would change everything when one brave chick finally stepped toward the edge and jumped into the endless air below. The terrified young bird flapped wildly through the strong rushing winds while Shiro flew perfectly beside it, offering guidance and protection. Slowly the frightened chick stabilized its wings and completed the first successful flight above the crashing waves beneath the proud watch of Shiro. Danger struck again when a dark stroke targeted the inexperienced young flyer high above the cliffside canyon. Shiro intercepted the attack instantly and swam directly into the predator midair before escorting the terrified young bird safely back to its nest. As the seasons changed, the once helpless chicks transformed into swift young flyers mastering impossible maneuvers through narrow canyon formations and violent coastal winds. Shiro led breathtaking vertical dives through the open sky while the growing offspring followed closely behind with increasing speed and precision. Together they skimmed above roaring waterfalls, glided across endless ocean waves, and hunted insects high within the clouds like true masters of the air. flawless barrel rolls and impossible aerial maneuvers above the vast ocean below. The young birds now hunted expertly beside Shiro, diving fearlessly into enormous clouds of insects while sharing meals together in midair. One final threat emerged when another snake climbed toward the old prisoner. But this time the grown offspring joined Shiro in a coordinated aerial assault. Working together with speed and precision, the swift family overwhelmed the predator from every direction until the snake finally lost its grip and plunged into the abyss below. Resting peacefully beside the fully grown offspring afterward, Shiro gently pruned their sleek adult feathers while the family prepared for the great migration ahead. From fragile white eggs trembling upon a storm-battered cliff to legendary masters of the open sky, Shiro's journey became proof that courage, sacrifice, and endless determination can transform the smallest newborn life into rulers of the endless heavens. High upon a steep ocean cliff where violent winds never rest, Shiro protected two fragile white eggs against the endless fury of the open sky. Cold winds whipped across the narrow nest while Shiro wrapped warm feathers tightly around the precious eggs sitting beneath the powerful wind. Day after day, Shiro remained fearless against storms and exhaustion, never leaving